We're in the age, as you know, of cancel culture. And I've even debated and I've even threw out for subjectivity. Is cancel culture even a thing anymore? Right? And I'm talking about this climate. But as I've said before, we're in the age of cancel culture judged by the court of public opinion. What does that uphold anymore? Well, now with umpteenth million cameras and everyone having a podcast, and just in case you don't know, there are hundreds and millions of podcasts out there. Now, let me explain something to you briefly about the uniqueness or the unique innovation of podcasting. Guess what? The rules are off the table. It's your baby. It's your LLC. You're the proprietary, or you're the proprietor of your own podcast. You are the content creator. You are the executive director. You are the producer. If you do have external editing, that's on you, but it's decision making that typically involves you. And some people think it's very easy to just get in front of a camera and blah, 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 blah. It takes a lot of research to get in front of the camera and have sustainable conversations. And like myself, this is my recipe, right? Like my mix. I am a one-man show versus some other podcasts where they interview people. I have more of that NPR style, which is what I adore. Right? When you read a book, you don't have multiple voices and multiple people reading that book. So sometimes I take the monologue approach, which is my take, my perspective, which don't make it right. Let me just say that it doesn't make it right. But in this day and time where we're judged by the court of public opinion, I'll tell you right now, because all it takes is a sniff or someone to pass gas or for you to drop something or say a noun, an adjective, a pronoun, or even an expletive. That's out of pocket, but you guys know what it is. Don't hold me to it. I'm just here to pod. As you know, I always like to start out with gratitude, and to me, that's a non-negotiable. It's how I start my day. It's a lot of how I show appreciation for certain things. But what I'm grateful for today is one simple thing. And that is what I'm doing to you. I'm storytelling. I'm making it persuasive. There are different ways to communicating. Usually from this take or this seat or this chair, I'm usually coming from a subjective point of view. A subjective point of view. I'm coming from a persuasive point of view, or I'm coming from a fact, fiction, or even, and I'm stealing this term, so I'm not originating it, right? Let's think of Area 51 when I say this. But I'm giving you a tinfoil approach to what could be some conspiracy theory that sometimes is good for sauce. It's good for public intake. Sometimes people don't want straight up left, right, my style or NPR style dialogue or monologue, if you will. Some people want tea. They want drama. And I love Denzel when he said, reporting news is not about being right anymore. It's about being first. And I'm so patient in the game where I don't have timelines and it's not a 360 deal with this person or that person, even though Prize Picks are throwing out ads left and right on all kind of podcasts. Let me tell you something. Club Shay Shay Media, the JBN, Joe Rogan, Mr. Beast, AMP. Listen, I'm all up for the signing if it's something that we can talk about. Like I say this all the time, anything's negotiable. But back to my gratitude piece, right? I'm so grateful for the art of storytelling. I would say that there's three people, but there's certain people that I can listen to for days. I could actually put headphones on or go heads down, get in the car, take a long road trip, put some miles on the whip, and actually listen to Samuel L. Jackson and Quentin Tarantino have a dialogue and go back and forth. I could listen to Denzel Washington and Viola Davis go back and forth with a conversation for days. I could listen to Spike Lee and a Tyler Perry to sit down and have a dialogue about being in front, on, and behind the camera as EPs, writers, directors, and culture activists. I could listen to that for days. But when it comes to the culture, right, not necessarily in the form of hip hop, even though I think of these individuals, representatives of the culture, there are three that come to mind, right? One is The Game, right? Jayceon, right? I'm talking about The Game out west, y'all, which to me is up there when it comes to lyricism, when it comes to being an assassin behind the mic. His pen game is stupid, and to me can body any pocket of a beat and deliver a message, whether it is storytelling from the hood, whether it is storytelling from an organization, whether it is storytelling in the form of embellishing something that could or could not be all of what it is. He will stretch it and pull you in, and he has a delivery of I won't call it a lisp, but he has a way of talking to pull you in because he flows as if it doesn't bother him. And we all have deficiencies, but I love how he leans in I won't call it a deformity either, but he has a way of speaking, and it's not pure. It has a flaw, but yet he talks and he pulls you into his story. Everybody has their own unique thumbprint and fingerprint, right? So he can pull you in with probably a story that makes you want to hear more. And the other person, right? So as you develop into the art of storytelling, this individual, born and raised in West Philadelphia, and now has the responsibility as an actor, a thespian, and also was known as an MC. And I'm talking about the Fresh Prince, better known as Will Smith. I could listen to his monologue for days. He kind of has a tinfoil hat theory and will pull you in, right? We don't share the same beliefs, but in some form or fashion, I see myself like a Will Smith. And it's no exception when it comes to the art of storytelling. But the third individual who I got to tip my hat to, who we've seen the maturation of, right? We've seen the maturation of this individual come through the camera lens, the stage as a comedian, not so great actor, on the rise, but fully developed into someone now I think we all can put some respect on his name. Who am I talking about? I've mentioned this before. When it came to the S, the N, and the L, when it comes to the improv, I love improv. I love the ability for one to take little and stretch it to a lot, right? I'm talking about none other than the 50th celebration, and Dave Chappelle came and blessed Saturday Night Live over the weekend. Now, according to Dave, he was asked by the producers to come and do something the Saturday before the inauguration. He said, nah. But they said, would you consider, and I'm paraphrasing, would you consider coming somewhere close to the inauguration? And he touched Mike. He put it on. He had that suit on, right? White shirt, black tie, smoked it on a classic look. Now, if you know comedians, right? Comedians usually fall into a ram of having a niche. Dave Chappelle has evolved, right, since the Dave Chappelle show on the Comedy Network, has developed his own niche. And now when he's on stage, you actually see him either sitting down, humped back, hunched over, sitting in a stool. He walks, he paces, he comes back to a seat. But if you'll notice, in between that index finger and his middle finger, he's got a square in his hand. He's got a Lucy in his hand. He's got a Newport. He's got a Cool Menthol Light. I don't know what it is, but Dave Chappelle's niche now is talking with the cigarette in hand. If you go back to some of the earlier comedians, they used to do comedy in what they call the cigar bar or the piano bar, right? Or the speakeasies of the days where certain things wasn't allowed, but yet they brought in raw comedy to suppress some of the other things that was going on. If you know, you know. You had individuals like Red Fox, Richard Pryor, Andrew Dice Clay. These were individuals who smoked on stage. I think Dave Chappelle is leaning into this niche and bodying it. Well, he smoked the SNL monologue. And when I tell you this man tight-roped the storyline, but didn't cross the line, he didn't get too high, he didn't get too low. But Dave Chappelle finds a way to give you offensive content, but yet making it politically correct or incorrect, i.e., the LGBTQAI plus community went at Dave for some of his jokes. Then he came back and said, well, the ADA community and the disability community came at him because they didn't feel inclusive. So he came up off the Pride Plus community and went to the ADA community, and people were offended. But some, as I understood, of the ADA community were highly entertained by the comedy and saw it as a normalcy where we may have saw it as disgusting. So again, the tightrope. Didn't get too high, didn't get too low, but he smoked the SNL as if we had paid tickets to watch this man do his content. And I'll be honest with you, the closer, which was one of his shows or one of his stand-up sessions, should I call it, his closer in the SNL monologue was prolific. And I think it's worth a Harvard, Yale, Morehouse, Howard University study. I do think that Dave Chappelle's approach to entertainment now requires a deep dive. And I always start out with gratitude. And Dave Chappelle, I got to give him his props. He was recently on Drink Champs. But if you think about the block party, if you think about Dave Chappelle rolling the Nutty Professor and the maturation of Dave Chappelle, the man is smoking it and knows all too much about researching before he just touch a mic. You can tell there are certain things that have to be in place before he can touch a venue or a mic. I love that type of organization. Speaking of organization, it would behoove me if I didn't touch on our most recent presidential inauguration. I say all the time, we're in the age of cancel culture judged by the court of public opinion. Well, one thing you heard me doing in my campaign of 2024 was making sure everyone was registered to vote and going out and exercising your right to vote. You never heard me push a narrative on who you should vote for. However, I did make stressful and strong emphasis on you need to find out whether you're rocking with the RNC or the DNC and what policies align with you. I'll touch on that in a second. Rock with me. But it's something beautiful about the pomp and circumstances of what we have witnessed over the last 30 days, more so the last 2 weeks. And in greater Atlanta, where surrounding cities and counties, the former POTUS, President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, was laid to rest. And if I had to put it my way, the man is gone to glory based on the stories that was told about his life, not as a president, but as a man. But it's been something unique about my excitement for this country. Follow me close, okay? I don't want anyone to misconstrue or mistake what I'm saying, okay? There's something beautiful about the pomp and circumstances of what we've witnessed with former President Jimmy Carter and but a lot of people are seeing things that they didn't know was traditional ways. But to me, it's just the beauty of certain things, right? And a lot of people who are not familiar with the traditions of the U.S. Armed Service, you got to see it in full force, whether you were witnessing the ceremonies for President Jimmy Carter, or if you were witnessing the inauguration, the presidential inauguration, and the changing of the guard. There was a lot going on, and I'm sure some of you was like, why can't they just shake hands and he go in office? No, it talks about our democracy, right? It talks about the traditions of America and how they've evolved into where they are today. However, some traditions have remained the same for hundreds of years. It was something unique about the ceremonial uniforms, the positioning, the stances that some of the armed service members had, the medals, the formal attire, the full dress uniform. Some know them as the dress blues, right? Or the formal wear of the military. There are so many uniforms. You have your service uniform, your utility uniform, your camo uniform, your working uniform, your summer uniform, your winter. I can go on and on and on, but you saw ceremonial uniforms, i.e. some of the medals had gold gilded around the metal area. They were gilded in gold around the area. You saw Corafram shoes or wax to the nine shoes. You saw swords. You saw everyone standing at attention, chest out, butt out, stomach in, gigs lined straight, no wrinkles in the uniform. You saw a lot of things that are accounted for that has to do with our original colonies in our country, and that has a lot to do with the historical stances and the time served in some of our uniforms. They're not just by Gucci design, Prada design, right? A lot of designs of the uniform were war-based, and a lot of them were colony-based, and a lot of them have deep meaning to them. So it was so beautiful for me and possibly those who have served to see those things. How about the diversity that you saw in the service persons, right? And the ceremonial instances that you saw, right? I'm going to raise my hand and share this as if you didn't know it already, but I was part of ceremonial honor guard. And it is you cannot be loose leaf with the weight, right? There is a height requirement, right, that you must meet. There is a minimum and a maximum. They want everyone to look the same in the rank and in order. But it was my honorary commitment to witness all of the pomp and circumstances that went on from President Carter, from the flag being flown at half-mast to the inauguration. Now, this is not a hot take, right? This is not a hot take, but let me just state for the record that the last time we spoke, Joe Biden was stepping down. Madam VP Kamala Harris was coming in for the DNC on the ticket to go against former president, 45th president Donald J. Trump. And there were a lot of discussions as to how the campaign went, the strategies that was giving, the passive aggressiveness that was given, the divisiveness from the RNC that went all the way to the House, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, that came all the way down to some of the lower level House arguments and debates, which carried over to the street, which had some folks actually being anti-America, some folks being anti-policy, some folks being anti-Trump. What does it matter? I mean, anti-voting, pardon me. And some people was even to the point where does it matter? And I'll tell you what was truly exposed during this election period. Who you rocking with? Who you with? I think Lil Jon and the East Side Boys said it best. Who you with? Who you with? Who you with? Get crunk. Who you with? I think old Jehovah said it best also. Cough up a lung where I'm from, Marcy, son. Ain't nothing nice. Who you with? Dun, 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 dun. Y'all get where I'm going. I'm trying to include some hip hop in this thing because I don't want to serious us out. But let's talk about a couple of things. And it's not a hot take, but some of you guys know this. But let me just point out what you may not have heard during the news and from some professional journalist. Again, you may not see these things in a history book because it's being rewritten as we speak. But Donald J. Trump was the 45th and current 47th President of the United States of America. Pardon me if I'm being Captain Obvious on some of these subjects, but I just want to call out a couple of things, right? So Kamala ran a race and was defeated, and it was a big defeat. Right now, when you think of all the policies and this Project 25 and all of these things that was out and about, birthrights and women's rights and my body, my choice and all of these things. And then we started to see the pop out, right? We saw Kendrick Lamar, They Not Like Us concert, which causes some division between LeBron and Drake. I don't want to get into all of that, but I have to throw it in here because what we saw from 2024 to 2025 was a huge breakup. If I had to name this pod, it would be called Pop the Balloon, 2024 or 2025. Pop for which one you don't like. And come to find out, we may not have any balloons left on the table, but Donald J. Trump was the 45th and now currently the 47th President of the United States of America. Interesting fact, he is the second POTUS of the United States that was elected for 2 non-consecutive terms. The other individual who had the same thing served 2 non-consecutive terms was Grover Cleveland, which was the 22nd and then again the 24th President of the United States from 1885 to 1889. Then his 24th term, his 24th term was second term, as the 24th president was 1893 to 1897. Now, I ain't going to hold you. Y'all watched the inauguration. So did I. Maybe some of y'all didn't. Maybe some of you guys had a protest mindset because you heard Snoop was rocking the mic during the inauguration party. Or maybe some of you chose not to tune in because you just didn't want to deal with the pomp and circumstance. It's too long. It's too boring. What does this all mean? I don't know. Some of you may have said, I ain't rocking with it because you heard Nelly was rocking the mic at the joint. Some of you may not have watched because you heard Rose, the biggest boss, the man from Promised Land. Yeah, Rick Ross was performing as well. So maybe some of you didn't turn in, or maybe some of you didn't want to turn in because you saw those things. And I think it was contradictory that some of these individuals that performed said they would never be a part of any fugazi that had to do with Donald Trump. Good, bad, or indifferent, as I understood, they performed. Now, I hear that there's a narrative behind Snoop's, which is one of his homies was pardoned. And there's affiliation in that performance where he's just saying, hey, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. I'm paraphrasing. I'm trying to break it down to its lowest term as a fraction. So you guys understand some of the narrative behind that. But I ain't going to hold you. Melania Trump, gear was fly. That woman was fly. But I got to say something. For some odd reason, right? Blow me up. Do whatever you got to do. Kill me in the comments. I'm here for the smoke. I don't want no sauce. But to me, it wasn't inauguration appropriate. Okay. Let's look at what it was, right? For history, time over time, right? Term over term over term. The last person that went inside was old cowboy himself, Ronald Reagan. He was the last person to do it inside. And since there was inclement weather, it was cold, y'all. What do you expect? You're on the East Coast. You're in D.C. I mean, D.C., like right on the Potomac, D.C. You're northeast, for lack of a better word. Okay? So you knew it was going to be outside. Get a coat. Put some long johns on. But I forgot. You're starting to rewrite things that cater to your good. Am I exaggerating? I don't know. You guys tell me. It's somewhat subjective, but one would say you wanted it inside because Ronald Reagan was known as one of the best presidents under Republican Party. And you're now trying to not only duplicate, but one up to be one of the best known Republican presidents or POTUSes that has ever lived. I see you doing things almost for the cream, not the cash, but the clout. Clout rules everything around me. Or you're doing it COE, content over everything. I don't know. It could have been truly cold, but from what I saw, it was a beautiful day in D.C. on Monday. It was a beautiful day in D.C. on Monday. I set that up. I put the ball on the tee for this reason and this reason only. Melania Trump was fly, yes, but it wasn't inauguration appropriate to me. This is my take. Yo, she had the Mortal Kombat Raiden hat on. And I just think you've been here before. You know what decorum and you know what precedents a first lady have go all the way back to the Kennedy days where people actually, I won't say idolized, but a lot of people had the utmost respect for First Lady Kennedy. And then the trends start to follow. You can go back to President Carter's wife, the First Lady then. First Lady Carter, and I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Pardon me, on her name. No shade to Melania Trump, but I will say this. You knew you would be inside. I mean, I really struggled, right? I really struggled trying to frame. I watched I turned to several different channels to see if it was the lighting. No, couldn't see your face. I looked at several different places to see if she was hiding something, couldn't see your eyes. A lot of times you want to engage with the people, and I'm just setting this up, right? I don't know what the standard is, but let me just say for the sake of pomp and circumstance, right? As I laid out the military, there's a reason for everything, right? Are you guys trying to reinvent the wheel as first family? Because Melania Trump, we couldn't see your eyes. We want to be able to see the genuine nature that A, you're proud to be there. You're proud of your husband. You have pride in this country, not as much as your husband, but at least look like you're rocking with the guy. This guy really stands on what he stands on. I'm not going to say he SOB because sometimes it's very divisive. Right? There's a lot of microaggressions in some of the things he do that I think a lot of the MAGA supporters or the MAGA universe actually don't, or they fail to see. But she could have rocked something way wavier than what she wore. What she wore was wavy. Don't get it twisted. It was mad wavy. But one thing that I will say is, knowing that you was going to be inside, you probably could have redirected that. And if you need some help, I'm sure your man got some bag or some munions to where you can go hire somebody to go, give me the best fit for this inauguration. I'm going to kill it. Ain't nothing wrong with having that kind of mentality. But to me, this is me. This is old Mecca Don. This is old Dante, old Rick James. This is my cold-blooded take. And that is, you look like you are hiding something. Every time we see you, you look confused to be happy or you look sad to be low. I don't know what it is, but one thing I will say is blink twice if you need us. It just looks to me like you're hiding something. Now, not too much on Melania, because I will say last year or either the year before or earlier last year, I can't remember, she lost her mom. So I'm not throwing a bullet at her, but I am saying a formal fashion a formal model. That's what you did. You took it off and you put it on. You should know better. I could see if you was outside and rocked that, but you knew you was going to be inside. Yo, we couldn't see your eyes. We couldn't see your face. Now, later on at the dance and all of that jazz they did, I mean, she had on something else. She did put it on, but all I'm saying, it was fly. Don't get it twisted. I started with that, but it wasn't inauguration appropriate if you ask me. So let's line it up, okay? Because a lot of people are like bugging because of her and him. So let me just run it down for you all real quick. So Donald J. Trump is 78 years old, if I'm not mistaken. And his wife, Melania, is 54 years old. That's a difference of 24 years. Okay. She was born in Novo Mesto, Slovenia, right? Which was then, when she was born, a part of Yugoslavia. Now, I'm no history buff, but if my history and memory serves me correct, the good old US of A had issues with them. But as always, we always find a way to get the money on based off military support, selling ammo, giving them our old work, right? So where she was born, I'll give you a little geographical context just so you can put it in the frame of where this lady is from. Some people keep saying she's Russian, but that's between Italy and Budapest, right? And we're talking the continent of Europe, right? And that's off the coast of the Adriatic Ocean. That's one of the 50 seas, okay? So listen, if you take North Atlantic, right, and then you hit the Mediterranean Sea, the good old Med, and if you see the Suez Canal, you've went too far, right? You're trying to go to Africa, right? Stay out the motherland, right? No, she's north of Africa. She's north of Africa, right? And you want to hit that Med and go up to the Adriatic. You want to go up to the Adriatic Sea, and that's where you'll find Slovenia, kind of off the coast of the Adriatic Sea. But it's, again, I'll say it again for the cheap seats and the sake of a globe, it's north of Africa. But she was the first naturalized citizen to become first lady. I want to, right. This is not shade, but I'm going to call out some diversity things that you may or may not have noticed about the state. It was weird. This was one, and I was part of the Clinton inauguration. I was actually in the Clinton parade, and this was weird to me, right? This was so weird to me, but rock with me as I go through this. I want to talk about the diversity of, when you mention a president, you call them president, right? You can say former if you like, but they can be addressed as president, right? When you hear them calling each other by first name, or when you hear people in a barbershop, or when you hear people in the street or on some newscast calling them by their first name, in a pomp and circumstance way, is deemed as improper. So you always want to give them their correct title. But again, if I say something out of pocket, don't hold me to it. You guys know I'm just here to pod. But let's just look at a couple of things amongst the presidents that was there. Now, we're going to omit Jimmy Carter, right? Just because I think all of this ties in. But just listen to the diversity of the presidents as I go down. Jimmy Carter was the oldest living president, right? He hit 100 years old. During the time of the inauguration, the flag was being flown at half-mast. So in some form or another, his presence was felt there at the inauguration, right? There was the second father and son POTUS being there in representation form, and that's George Bush and George W. Bush, right? George Bush Sr. Passed years ago, and George W. Bush, was there in attendance with his wife. There was a former black president of the United States, Barack Obama, whose wife, fortunately or unfortunately, declined. Now, we know the history with her love-hate relationship for politics, let alone, I'll call it unequal justice, if you will. She ain't with that. Remember, she was the one that had the quotable, when they go low, we go high. I think she retracted on that and was basically like, this is some fugazi, right? So I respect her. I have the utmost respect for her, not because she is a black woman, but what she stands on and how she represents herself, right? She respectfully declined. But President Barack Obama was succeeded by another individual who was there, which was former Donald J. Trump. And at the time, he had served one term, which was succeeded by the departing former president of the United States, Joe Biden, who served as Barack Obama's VP in a term. But then when he saw the fugazi with Donald Trump, he said, I'm going to SOB, I'm going to stand on business, and I'm going to run in this race. I don't want to. I've been at this game for a long time. But based on what I see, if I don't do something, I won't be able to live with myself. So Joe Biden put his name in a ticket and actually won. But when it comes to diversity, when we think of ageism, former President Joe Biden was 82 years old, which made him the oldest serving president of the United States, followed by his vice president, one of the highest ranking female officials in U.S. history, the first Black Asian American, which was Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, which was also president candidate Kamala Harris, who's married to a Caucasian man as second gentleman. This was the first of the United States, which was succeeded by, she was succeeded by J.D. Vance. This was the guy who said motherless cat ladies, that's married to now the first Asian Indian lady as second lady of the United States, who now falls under the new commander-in-chief, Donald J. Trump, as the, here comes the shade, first convicted felon to serve and take oath as the United States president. I know that was a mouthful, but this is America. Don't catch me slipping up. How do you guys like what you see so far? How do you guys like the maturation of what America has become when it comes to pomp and circumstance? How do you guys like the turnout so far of rinse and repeat of what we're seeing in the White House? Is it entertainment? Is it cream? Clout rules everything? Is it COE? Is it content over everything? Listen. You want to talk about moving and moving fast? It hasn't even been 48 hours into office, and President Trump has issued 200 executive orders. This is even on his first day. Before the man went to bed, he had the Sharpie out going to work and was proud of it. It was almost like strategy for day one in office. Like, I don't know what else he's going to do because he did everything on night one. But let me just call out some big highlights. So rock with me and pardon me if I get any of these wrong because it was a lot to follow. We're talking 200 orders, executive orders. But I'm just going to call out some of the big highlights. So first, the big dodo, right? President Trump pardoned 1,500 Capitol rioters, and are calling them J6 warriors. So hold on. Anybody that's serving right now, oh yeah, run them keys, get them up out of there. Those that are pending trial right now with attorneys, kill that noise. They're coming off the stand. They're coming off of interrogation. Give them their jobs back. Whatever you got to do, make it happen, Captain. Make it happen. Because these guys are pardoned. Buckle up. Birthright citizenship. You must be born here in the United States of America, according to one of the executive orders that was signed. If you are here illegally and you were born in the United States, previously you were giving a certificate. We know it as a birth certificate. Now I think you're going to get some type of voucher of birth, but you got to go based on this executive order. Now, I'm not saying that with pride and glee. I'm just telling you what's being signed. And that's the birthright citizenship. There's also plans for 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Oh, get ready. Made in America is coming back in full effect. Strong. There's going to be a heavy and extreme crackdown on illegal immigrants. There's an extreme push right now on the Mexico border. He's ordering and signed an order and petition for there to be more detention centers to be built and a mass deportation to begin in effect. They've shown videos of some of these people that are crying because all hope is gone at this point. There are people scrambling in the United States. There are people laying low right now. It's going to be a mess. I'm just predicting. I'm making this subjective. I'm not saying it's going to be smooth sailing. Hey, you want to talk to somebody? Talk to a black man when it comes to driving. You want to talk about the anxiety and the buildup of having to slow down, having to put your hand on 10 and 2, having to do the right thing so you don't be pulled over as a reasonable, a reason to question, if you will. Trump revised the Biden era policies, get this, on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI. They're reversing the Biden era policies on diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're starting with the military, and they're saying it's coming down in the workforce. So what does that mean for the military? The U.S. military, after this signed doctrine, after this signed executive order, there will only be 2 genders, male, female. LGBTQAI+. There used to be a don't ask, don't tell policy, but now I think they're giving out them Bravo Charlie Deltas, those bad chicken dinners, and it's called a bad conduct discharge. They're coming. There's also been an executive order on our ability to shop at a grocery store and pay reasonable prices. They had the inflation law where it even came down to this minute detail, air that they're putting in chips and only filling the bag up 25%, but yet charging you for a certain amount of ounces of the product. They're investigating all of that right now to cut inflation. They didn't say anything about price gouging. Talking about cutting inflation. TikTok. Some of you may have saw over the weekend that you couldn't get access, and there was a memo that popped up on your stream and your feed. Just in case I haven't stated my stance on TikTok, let's let the kids have it. But what do we do as adults? We always want to bum rush and be all up in the videos. We always want to be at the playground. We always want to be at the playground with the kids when there's 40 kids around 4 swings and a slide and a teeter-totter. Moms and the dads of the helicopter world want to be all up on Johnny and Lil Janet. Let them play. If they fall, they fall. They're not going to die. Let them interact with some other kids. Get up off the damn playground with your old ass. Let them kids play. And to me, that's metaphorically how I see TikTok. Do you remember Vine? Do you remember Musical.ly? This was for the kids. And then we hopped our old asses on there and we took over the socials. Now we're making commercials. Now we're using it as one of the biggest marketing tools. TikTok has totally, I'm just going to say it, this is my take. TikTok has totally, I'm going to say ruined hip hop, but it's ruining the music industry. For example, the song $1 Million Baby. Man, that song is garbage. But it was catchy. It was catchy. Everybody wanted to bop to it. Everybody was singing the song, but didn't know the words, right? And TikTok allowed this dude, because of the hype, to be put in the Grammy nomination for rap. Yo. But one thing that he said, now my opinion doesn't matter when it comes to this because I'm not a dictator. But one thing that he did say was he's mentioned his right to either sell it or shut it down. Another big highlight, Mount Denali, America's highest peak, well over 20,310 feet above sea level, was named by the Obama campaign for the indigenous people. For the indigenous people. I'll say it again, Mount Denali was named for the indigenous people. That's the short skimmy. But Trump signed an executive order requiring the Secretary of Interior to revert the name back to William McKinley. Yep. So you guys are like, what? So what? Aha. William McKinley was the 25th president of the United States. William McKinley was also the last served. He was known to have last served in the American Civil War. So this brings me as a hot take to say some of those statues that was taken down may be resurrected. Some of these memorials and monuments that were blatantly obvious and offensive to some, they may be coming back. I'm keeping an eye on Georgia's Governor Kemp, right? So Georgia's state flag used to be the Confederate flag and now has, Atlanta's flag, or was it Georgia's? I'm bugging. Georgia's flag was formerly the Confederate flag, but now has been changed to a state crest with the same colors. I wonder if Kemp would do something as bold as to bring that flag back. Hence the term, again, for great America that you're trying to make. But the most divisive to me when it came to his 60 days in, or his 48 days in, or his 1 day in, his 24 hours in, was the divisive tweet that he made. This dude can't stay off of social media. Clout. He's got the bread, but it's clout. He went on Twitter and his socials to fire Jose Andres. Jose Andres, which was the President Council on Sports. Mark Milley, which was the National Infrastructure on Advisory Council. Brent Hook, which was the Wilson Center of Scholars. And this one hit home right here. Because this is sis. I don't understand. But former mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms, was the President Export Council. This dude went on Twitter and said, on the first day of the White House is not over yet. My presidential personnel office is actively in the process of identifying and removing over 1,000 presidential appointees from the previous administration who are not aligned with our vision to make America great again. Boom. Let this serve as an official notice and dismissal for the 4 individuals, with many more coming soon. Jose Andres from the President of Council, Fitness and Nutrition. Mark Milley from the National Infrastructure Advisory Council. Brian Hook from the Wilson Center of Scholars. And Keisha Lance Bottoms from the President's Export Council. You're fired. What are we doing here, yo? What are we doing here? But let me remind you guys of something. There are 3 branches of government. There's legislative, there's executive, and judicial. Executive, legislative, and judicial. The legislative branch makes the laws, the executive carries out the laws, and the judicial, they evaluate the laws. And in this case, the eyes are on the judicial. And let me remind you guys, there's Neil Gorsuch. Pardon me if I'm saying that wrong. You got Brett Kavanaugh and you got Amy Coney Barrett, right? These were all appointees of Don Teasy. You got to take a look at the look, see, and feel of the liberal wing of the current Supreme Court and the conservative wing of the Supreme Court. It's unbalanced. Which means that a lot of these laws that are in place right now, stand by, they could change. So my question to you is, are we making America great again? And if so, what era of America, what era of the greatness of America are we talking about? Folks, is this the America that you want to see? Well, some may argue, well, if you don't like it, this is 2 men talking at Cracker Barrel. Well, if you don't like it, why don't you go somewhere else? You think it's that easy to just uproot and leave something that you've invested in? A place that you love? a place that you've served when you voted? Audience out there. And you know who you voted for. Because there's some of you that look like me and there's some of you that don't look like me. Respect, you voted. That was the push, right? It's your vote, your choice. And I'll add a third one, your privacy. But to whom it may concern, did your vote, your outcomes, did they align with who you voted for? Or did you just go off a popularity thing and go, I'm rocking with because I like? Were you emotionally tied to your vote, or did you actually look at policies? I'm going to even take it a step further because we ignore it too much. Did you start in your local regions? Or did you just wait for the presidential elections and just click and pull the ballot, punch the ticket? When was America great? Great. And I'll ask you again, tell me what era of America that was great that we're trying to go back to. I said it before and I'll say it again. We're in the age of cancel culture, if it's even a thing. It seems like if you have enough money, all sins are forgotten. Not forgiven, forgotten. Or all sins are pardoned. Remember, this is the same guy that said, I'm paraphrasing, I can go out and kill somebody on so-and-so street and go on about my business for the rest of the day. Diversity, inclusion, equity. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a hashtag now or a buzzword. Look at your job and tell me, is it in place? Go look on your company's website and look at the C-suite and see if it have any diversity, equity, or inclusion in it. Birthrights. And they haven't even scratched the surface of your body, your choice. It may no longer be your choice. Thoughts and prayers to everyone that this is affecting in a knee-jerk reaction. But ladies and gentlemen, just in case you haven't been up on your civics and your civic studies, it may be time for you to crack a book and educate yourself on how policies work. The chain of command can come downward, but it can also go upward. And I'll be honest, if you have concerns, you can start with your congressman. That is a start. Who knows what will happen? And I'll be honest, involve yourself in your civic duties. Until we meet again, guys. Peace. Sheesh. I don't know how to put it, but in summary, it's going to be a hell of a year. And it's just January. I think I heard the man say drill, baby, drill in the United States. Drill, baby, drill. Claim the United States is on liquid gold. Liquid gold. We shall see.